So today we will talk about the Azure subscription hierarchy, and now we learned about subscription. We need a subscription to start working on Azure or start deploying the resources in Azure, right? Now what we'll learn is we will try to learn um, how do you deploy the resources, right? How do you create your resources? Now what is needed and how the hierarchy looks like, right? That is what we are going to learn today. Then later, what we will do is if I am hiring you as an Azure engineer, right? How do I provide access to you? How do I delegate my rights to you, right? And what level of access we can give you, right? How do we manage the access part? So that is what we are going to learn um, today. Okay, so let me share my screen. I think before that I will give access to the new folks to record the session. Yeah, so I'm sharing my screen, team. Let me know if you're able to see.
Yeah, we're able to see.
Okay, great. So so far we learned about subscription. You know about subscription, right? That is the only terminology that you remember as of now. Okay, subscription. So if you want to get a subscription, we need to have an account, right? The account can be your organization ID. And what is the other account, guys? It can be your Microsoft account, right? When I say Microsoft account, it can be your Outlook.com, it can be your Gmail or Hotmail accounts, right? So what happens when you get a subscription? So with you might be taking uh, free trial account, or you might be taking a pay as you go subscription. Anything is fine, right? So let's say you have taken a pay as you go subscription. All right. So when you take a pay as you go subscription, what happens along with the subscription? Do you get only subscription or anything else you will get it? So when you are subscribing for the Azure, you are going to provide your details, right? Details in the sense, your name and address, your company name. Okay. So when you provide these, okay, there will be something called directory. Okay. So there will be something called directory that gets created. Okay. Let's say if your company is contoso.com, okay, contoso. So there will be a directory created as contoso dot on Microsoft, okay, .com. So this is the directory that gets created, and we do call this as a tenant as well. Okay, just remember these terminologies. We do call them as a tenant. So there will be a directory that gets created, and we do call them as a tenant. So once it is created, whatever the subscription that we are trying to buy, that subscription will be associated with this directory. Okay, so which means that there can be more one directory and there can be more than one subscription. Now we are buying one subscription. Later, if you want to buy another Azure subscription, right? Then the then what happens is the new subscription also will be joined or part of this directory. So your account will be integrated with this directory, and this directory will have your Azure subscriptions. Okay, because this is the directory which holds your details of your organization. Okay, like who is the owner of the subscription, who can log into the subscription, right? All the details will be managed by your directory. We call this directory as Azure Active Directory. Okay, in simple we say Azure AD. Okay, so whoever is the account, whatever the account you're given here, kamal@contessa.com, right? That account will be first created in this directory. First directory will be created, then account will be created, then later your subscription will be enabled. What kind of subscription it is? We are talking about the pay as you go subscription, right? Later, you wanted to add, let's say, Josna to the subscription, right? So what we do, we will go to the Azure AD and add Josna account here. Okay, we'll add a new user, Josna. Then we'll add a new user, Jyoti, right? Then we'll add Vamsi and everybody, right? So we'll add all these users here in Azure AD. Later, I can add them to any one of the subscriptions. Maybe, I will add Josna to subscription one only. I don't want to add her to the subscription two because she has been hired for this only one project, not for the other project, right? So such kind of control, right? You can control all of these permissions through Azure AD. Azure AD maintains your user IDs, passwords, and the role as well. What kind of permissions you have, it maintains it, right? When you log into Azure portal, let's say you log into portal.azure.com, that is the Azure portal URL, right? When you log in and you enter your email ID, let's say josna@contoso.com, right? The request goes to the Azure AD. Azure AD will check whether the account is exist or not. If it is exist, then it will give you access to the portal login. Once it is logged into the once account is logged into the portal, then the permissions are evaluated. What permissions Josna has it? Does she have access to subscriptions, or she just a user in the Azure AD? If she is not part of any subscription, she cannot see any resources in the Azure portal, right? Because she don't have access to subscription. Okay, she only have access to the Azure AD. I mean, her account is just created. She can just log into the Azure portal, but she cannot see any other resources because she's just a user in this tenant. Okay, so this is about the account and directory and subscriptions. One directory can have multiple subscriptions, but one subscription cannot be part of multiple directories. Okay, that has to be, we have to remember that. So Azure AD is the key or core component here, right? Which is playing a major role. So it is not only used for Azure, okay? Any Microsoft service that you're purchasing. In this case, we're talking Azure, right? You do have Microsoft services like Office 365. Microsoft also provide Office 365, okay? So Office 365 you use for email, right? Email in the sense, you have OneDrive, you have Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Outlook. So you buy licenses at Office 365. Those licenses will be assigned to the users, right? So whenever a user is trying to log into his laptop, they enter the user ID and password. Later, their license will be evaluated and they get access to the Office products, right? So when you buy Office 365, in the back end, there will be Azure AD automatically created. Okay, there will be Azure AD automatically created. So here also Azure AD is playing a major role. Whatever the user you are adding, the user already exists here. Okay, there will be exist here, and authentication to Office 365 or Office products will be done by Azure AD or any other mechanism. But so ID will has to be exist here. Okay, so let's say I want to use same directory for Office 365 and Azure subscription. There are other Microsoft products like Microsoft Intune, okay, Intune, and Microsoft SharePoint Online, right? There can be various other products as well, right? So for those products also, if you wanted to use Azure AD, the same tenant, right? Instead of creating different tenants, different accounts, you can use the existing tenant, existing directory to subscribe for these products so that you create user account once in Azure AD, okay? The user account will be shown in the Azure subscriptions and Office 365, Intune, and SharePoint, okay? It has connectivity with the multiple other products of Microsoft. All right. You manage all of them from one place, which is Azure AD. Okay. This is all about how you integrate your Azure Microsoft services with the one tenant or one directory. Okay. What we need to know is when you subscribe for Azure, you are not only getting subscription, you are also getting a tenant or Azure AD. Okay. That is why I'm giving you all this history. All right. So now we got a account, you got a directory. Now you are going to buy a subscription. You brought one subscription. All right. So we are going to say this is the what kind of subscription it is. The type of subscription is pay as you go. Okay, we got the subscription. Then what is next? What is next? What are you going to do it? Right? What we want to do is we want to deploy our resources in the Azure. When I say resources, what does it mean? Right? I have a business requirement. I want to put my application in the cloud. Okay, where your application is running. Right now it is running on a VMware or in my current data center. So if I go to Azure, which component I have to use it? I have to create a virtual machine. Once I create a virtual machine, I have to deploy my application in the virtual machine so that my users can access the application from those virtual machines. Okay, for that we need a subscription. We got a subscription. Next, we need to create a virtual machine. Before you create a virtual machine, you need to know few things here. Okay, so as you see, we need to have at least one active subscription, and you need to create something called resource group in the Azure. Okay, you need to create the resource group. Without the resource group, okay, without the resource group, you cannot create any type of resource. It is like a logical grouping system. Okay, within this resource group only you can create any resources. You can create n number of resource groups, and each resource group contains more than one resources, and one resource cannot be part of multiple resource groups, which means if you have a VM1, VM1 will be part of resource group 1. VM1 cannot be part of resource group 1 and resource group 2. Okay, VM1 can only one resource can be part of one resource group only. Okay, so you have a resource group. Within the resource group, you create a resource. What kind of resource? It is a virtual machine as a resource. Virtual machine as a resource with the name called VM1, and another machine name VM2, another machine name VM3. Maybe you give some different name. You can say web virtual machine. Okay, this is my web server. And you have my Active Directory Domain Services Server, ADDS VM, right? You are going to create resources. Your VM also have IP address, right? VM1 IP, right? You create n number of resources in this resource group. Okay, that is fine, but they all belongs to one resource group only. Okay, so this is the hierarchy. You have a subscription, then you have resource group, then you have resources. All right, likewise you can have another resource group, and within that resource group you can have multiple resources, multiple resource groups and multiple resources. You can have it. This is the hierarchy. You have a subscription, you have a resource group, and you have resources. Let's say this is my RG2, resource group 2. Okay, and I have resource group 3. Okay, guys, and within this RG2 I have one storage account. Okay, then here I have a virtual network. Here I have a backup. Okay, and if I go to RG3, I have something else. I have virtual WAN. Okay, some other resources in the Azure. Let's say I have something called ASR. I have something called logic apps, right? So there can be multiple resources, and we'll also discuss, what is a best practice, right? How do we follow in the real time, right? I'm just explaining you the hierarchies and how it looks like, right? So we will also talk about the best practices and why do we need multiple resource groups and multiple resources. We'll also talk about them. Okay, so if I talk about this, right? This is the first hierarchy will be your account, then subscription, then resource groups, then resources. All right. And here, if I talk about this approach, right, this approach will help me in applying any permissions. Okay. This approach also will help me in applying certain policies. How it is going to help me is if I apply any permission here in the subscription level, they are inherited to all the resource groups. Okay, and its resources as well. Okay, you got it? That's how it is, inherited. If I apply permissions in a specific resource group only, right? If I apply permissions here, the permissions are applied to specific resource groups and its resources. Okay, the other advantage what I have is I don't want to apply permissions in a resource group level. I want to apply permission to a specific resource. Then I can directly apply to a specific resource. So that is the good thing we have with this approach, this hierarchy, logical hierarchy. And the resource group will help you in grouping the related resources. I will explain you what do I mean by related resources. Okay, so which means I will give you one customer scenario. Okay, so that you will understand better. Okay, so I'm going to say my account is kamal@contessor.com. Okay, this is my account, and my company is a service-based company. Okay, what we do is we provide cloud solutions to other customers. Okay, I am the account administrator. I'm the owner of this projects, right? What I have done is I've brought a subscription from Azure, okay, Microsoft. So when I get a subscription, what I've got is I've got a tenant or a directory says contoso dot on microsoft.com. Okay, this is my tenant. Okay, this is my tenant. Okay, I got this tenant. Under this tenant, I'm going to buy a couple of subscriptions. Okay, I'm going to buy subscription for one customer. Let's say I have a customer, take him, right? I'm going to buy one subscription for Tech Mahindra. Okay, I'm going to buy one subscription for Tech Mahindra and its resources. The other one I'm going to buy for another company, let's say Wipro. Okay, Wipro subscription. The other one I'm going to say I'm going to buy one for KFC as a customer, right? I'm going to buy for one customer KFC. So what I want to do is I wanted to put these into a category as well. Okay, so these are for what purpose I'm using this subscription to provide the managed services, right? So I'm going to create one management group called managed services is the category. Okay, I'm going to use it. This is the managed services category, and under which where I'm going to buy these subscriptions or attach these subscriptions. Okay, there will be one more management group I'm going to create called internal. Okay, internal management group. Within this internal, I'm going to buy two more subscriptions. Okay, one for demo subscription. Okay, one for training. Okay, so I will tell you the purpose of these. All right, I'm just putting these values so that you will easily understand the hierarchies. Okay. Okay, so here this is the hierarchy. Okay, so I have my account. From my account, as you see, I brought this directory. Under this directory I created two management groups. Okay, and under this management groups I brought three different subscriptions for different purpose. Okay, internal is for my internal team members who joined my organization. They wanted to do some POCs. I just gave them for demo subscription. I will give access to them for demo subscription, and people who wanted to learn something, wanted to join some trainings and conduct some sessions, for them I'm giving a training subscriptions. Okay, so they may not be all pay as you go subscription. Training might be like some free trial subscriptions. Maybe it has some MSDN subscription, different subscriptions where we get some benefits. Okay, so the reason why I brought this tech and subscription, I am going to manage the Tech Mahindra's customer services. Okay, Tech Mahindra has a company, an application. They wanted to put them in the cloud. Okay, the application continuously improved. Okay, so they will add some new features, new capabilities to the application, and we have to manage it. For that application to be deployed, what we need is we need two web servers. Okay, two database servers. Okay, two application servers, two batch job servers. Okay, likewise you see 8 servers we need for that customer to for application to run. All right, and as I said, they keep on improving their product. When I say keep on improving their product, They will add new features. They wanted to test it. So which means that they need a test environment. They need a development environment. They need a production environment, which means I need to deploy these 8 servers in 3 different environments, which means I'm going to take 3 different resource groups here. Okay, let me just show you. Okay, I'm going to use this way. So I'm going to deploy these in a different resource groups. Okay, this will be in a different resource groups. All right, so this is called dev. Let's say if the application is Facebook. Okay, dev Facebook application 01 sorry RG. Okay, this is the RG resource group. This is test, or I would say TS hyphen FB hyphen RG. Let's say application is some Facebook application or some social media application, right? And this is called PR is nothing but production application and RG. Under this resource group, I'm deploying all these resources. Now you can understand, right, the importance of the resource groups, right? You are defining these resource groups to manage some services. This has some meaning now, right? Earlier we just talked about the resource groups and resources. Now you have some meaning. Any dev environment, any development related activities has to be performed in the dev RG. Any production related environment has to happen in the production RG. If I wanted to create a production server, I have to use the production RG only, resource group only, right? And if I wanted to apply any policies for the development, okay, which should not be applied to the production, right? I can apply only to the dev RG, right? Let's say I am hiring, you know, Lokesh, right? Lokesh is the new joiner. I don't wanted to give him access to the production. I can directly simply assign him to the development RG, right? So he will be able to take RDP to these machines. He will be able to take remote connection and he will be able to manage these resources, right? So that is the use of this permission and resource groups and logical hierarchy. Similarly, I have a product for Wipro. Similar approach I might follow for KFC. Also, I might follow the similar approach. So here, so Lokesh will get access to only dev, and Josna will get access to the production subnet, a production resource group. But who is going to manage everything? So that is me. I'm going to manage entire organization, right? Organization resources. I'm an architect here, right? So what I do, I get a requirement from customers. Okay, I'll get into call with customer called Tech Mahindra. I'll get a requirement. Okay, they, they have an application. They want to deploy application in the cloud. I gather the requirement. What I will do is I will I will design a solution. Okay, I'm going to deploy your resources in one of the location. I'm going to design your resource groups like this. I'm going to deploy resources like this, and I'm going to design a role-based access control. Josna will get access to production resources. Location will get access to dev, and Jyoti will get access to test environment, or Vamsi will get access to entire subscription, Tech Mahindra subscriptions, right? So I will hire somebody else like Shashi. Shashi will get access to Wipro. He has to manage the Wipro resources, Wipro project, right? Likewise, Viman will get access to KFC subscription. I'll talk to KFC customer and get a onboarded, right? I will have a coordination with the project managers, and will get the new projects onboarded, new subscriptions purchased, and I will onboard all of these. Later, what I will do, I'll prepare some technical documentation and I'll give it to my Azure administrators like Josna and everybody. So they will what they will do is based on the documentation that I've given, like naming standards, which location they have to deploy, they will follow and just deploy manually or through automation using ARN templates or anything. That is how the every organization follows, right? So sometimes I want you know somebody to manage everything. I cannot take care of everything, right? So I will have somebody. What I will do, I will give them access in a management group level itself. For managed services, I'm going to add couple of resources like Akil and Suresh, all these guys I'm going to give access to the managed services level. So they get access to all the subscriptions and all the resources and resource groups. And they are like L4 or L3 guys, and Josna and other guys are, L2 guys, right? So they will get access to some of them, and some of the senior resources will get access to some more resources, more subscriptions. So this is how the organization looks like. Some of the people who joined recently, they will get access to demo and training. Once we are confident on their skill set and all, then we'll assign them to one of the projects in this existing subscriptions and resource groups. So this is the importance of the logical structure of the resource groups and resources, guys. And most of the organizations follow the same method. And you can just assume that, you are also part of a company where you have multiple management groups. And each management group has multiple different subscriptions. And each subscription has multiple resource groups and its resources. Okay. And you have been given access to a couple of subscriptions. In few subscriptions, you got access in a subscription level as a owner. In few subscriptions, you got access to a specific resource groups only. This is how you have to, imagine and start learning these things. Okay. Any questions so far? Are you guys clear so far?
Yes.
Yes, Kamini.
Okay. It is a simple concept. You got a directory, you got a subscription, you created resource groups, and you created resources. You got access. This is how the inheritance works. But I just wanted to ensure that you understood the whole concept. That's why I just took some time and explaining this, guys. Okay. Now let's jump into the next part of it, right? So as I said, I have given access to few of them in resource groups and few of them in a subscription level. So what access I'm referring? Did anybody think about it? What access I'm referring? What do you guys do, right? So what permissions you have it in Azure if I wanted to give access to somebody, and what do you do? So right, you are Azure administrator, you create server, you delete server, you restart the server, you increase the memory of the server, you add additional disk to the server, okay? You configure backup to the server, you configure network security group to the server. So some of the operations that you do, but not everybody has to do the same thing because you have some skill set. You have been hired for the different roles. You are a L1 engineer, or maybe some of them will have L2 engineers. Based on the experience and skill set, right? You will get access to the resources, right? Now let's try to understand what are the built-in roles we have, okay, in Azure. How do we manage these permissions? How do we manage this delegation in Azure? So we have something called RBAC, role-based access control. So this is the service that you have in Azure, okay, which is used to assign permissions in the cloud environment, right? If it is the on-premises, the permissions and the way you provide permissions, the way you manage is entirely different. But in the cloud, you are going to use RBAC, role-based access control. So with the RBAC, you have a few roles. We call it as a built-in roles. Okay, let me say these are the built-in roles. Okay, so built-in roles are owner, contributor, okay, reader. Just remember these guys. These are very, very important. Okay, this terminology also very, very important. Okay, if I am a owner, I can create any resource, I can delete any resource, I can give you access to any resource as a owner or a contributor reader if I am a owner. Okay, if I am a contributor, I get same permissions as a owner, almost all same permissions. Okay, but only thing is I cannot add anybody else as a owner because I'm a contributor. I cannot add somebody as a owner because owner has some more privileges, right? So I cannot add others as a owner. Okay, that's the only difference you have with the contributor and owner. Otherwise, you have all the permissions as a owner. Okay, when it comes to the reader, I can just see what is the status of the service, what are the resources available in the subscription and the resource groups, right? Whether the VM is in a running status or a power off status, that is what I can see. Okay, those are the three built-in resource permissions we have. Okay, so let's see, where do you apply these permissions, right? That you need to know. Now you learn something about these permissions, right? Where do you apply and how do you apply these permissions? The permissions can be applied in a management group level. Okay, if I apply in a management group level, the permissions will be inherited to these all subscriptions. Okay, if I apply permissions, I can also apply permissions in a subscription level as well. If I apply permission at subscription level, the resource is nothing but you. Okay, you get access to one specific subscription only where you got access, and its resource groups and its resources. So you get access to the subscription, which means all the resource groups and resources in that subscription, you will be able to access it, right? Because the permissions are inherited. You can give permissions in a resource group level as well. If you give resource group level, you will get access to only to that specific resource group and its resources. Okay. Now, if I give owner access in a subscription level, the permissions are inherited and you get access to all the resource groups and resources as a owner. And if I give access to a contributor in a subscription level, you get access to all the resource groups and resources as a contributor. Okay. Now I will take a scenario. Okay. I am hiring people for, managing my Azure environment. Okay. I need people who have system administrator background who can actually create a VM, manage the VM, like attaching a disk, detaching a disk, restarting the machine. Okay. And I need somebody else who has some networking skill set, like, adding an IP address, adding a network interface card, right? I need some people who has some backup experience. Three categories I'm taking. Okay. Whoever is I'm hiring for a VM or Windows experience, so they should only manage the VM related. They should not manage the network related. They should not manage the backup related. Okay. So because they are a Windows guys, they are the Windows administrators who got a promotion or you got a, opportunity in the cloud platform, right? So how do I provide permissions? If I give owner, okay, he get all the access. Even if I give a contributor, he get access to all the resources, because in a resource group, you not only have the VM, right? You do see there is something called storage account, there is something called IP address, there is something called network interface card, right? If I give access in a subscription level or resource group level, right? He get access to every resource, all the type, not only VM related, right? So these permissions are not sufficient, correct? Then Microsoft introduced service specific roles. Okay, there is something called service specific roles. All right. So when I say service specific roles, you have a VM, right? You have something called VM contributor. Okay. When I say VM contributor, you get only access to your virtual machines. You don't get access to the network components. Though now you are confidently give access to a user in a subscription level as a VM contributor. Though the permissions are inherited to your all the resource groups and resources, the user can only manage the operations related to virtual machine. He will not manage the operations related to the backup. He will not be able to manage the operations related to the network, because this is a VM contributor access that he got it in a subscription level. Okay. Now, if I want somebody to manage the backup, so I have something called backup operator. So I'm confidently, I can assign a user with the backup operator role in the subscription level or resource group levels. Anything is fine, because the user can only manage the backups. Because if I export these roles have some actions defined which are related to the backup, which are related to the VM only. Okay. Now I have another question here. Okay. Let's say I'm hiring somebody with a Windows skill set who can manage the VM operations. But within Windows, I have L1, L2, L3, different people, level of expertise, right? Yeah. If he's a L2 or L3, I can confidently give him as a VM contributor access. Okay, because I know their skill set and they can manage very well. But think about another scenario. I'm hiring a L1. Am I confident to give them VM contributor to my all the resource in the subscription? What if we delete the VM by mistake, right? What if we restart the machine by mistake? Not all the time, right? So maybe what if we change some settings, right? It's a problem, right? What else I can do? I mean, I want a user, okay, who can restart the VM when there is a performance issues on the virtual machines. If users are complaining that they are not able to RDP because of some performance issues, I want somebody to restart the machine. Okay, which of these roles are going to help me? None of these roles are going to help me. Even built-in roles are not going to help me. Service specific roles are not helping me because VM contributor has more privileges. And if I give owner or contributor, they have more privileges. If I give reader access, he can see what is the status. He cannot perform any action. Now, Microsoft introduced something called custom RBAC. Okay, what you can do is you can still customize the roles. Let's say VM contributor. You can customize this role, okay, to perform certain actions only. Let's say user should just perform the restart. I just want user to perform a restart operation. Okay, that is where custom RBAC is going to help me. I can create a new custom role and assign this role in a subscription level, and the user who have this role can only restart. He cannot do anything else, right? That is the custom RBAC. Now you learn built-in role-based access control, service-specific role-based access control, and custom role-based access control. These are the three different roles you have, and where you are going to manage and assign the permissions. Is it clear to everyone? Anyone have any questions so far?
It's in theoretical, right? Once in practical, it will be.
Okay, but the concept is clear, right? At a high level.
Yes, yes. We are
Okay,
creating groups and subgroups, right? Here.
yeah. So let me show you that now. Okay, now we learn these things. Let's look at them in the real time. Okay, I have this subscription purchased. How do I go to subscription? Once you log into the portal, you just look for subscriptions. Okay, this subscription is disabled because we are already overutilized. This is the subscription. I have it. Within this subscription, I have resource groups. Okay, I have resource groups. These are the resource groups, and I do have resources. There are multiple resources created here. Okay, so I will show you. This is the subscription. If I go to the resource group separate tab, there is something called resource group tab here. Just go to the resource group. There are around 19 resource groups created. If I go to one of the resource group, okay, within this resource group, there are resources you can see here, right? There are few resources, 18 resources available in this resource group. One of them is the virtual network. One of them is recovery service vault. The other one is a virtual machine. The other one is SQL virtual machine. The other one is a public IP address, network security groups, network interface card, disk related, right? You see there are multiple resources available in this. Though it is for testing, students are created, but you see some of the resources. You have subscription, then resource groups. Within the resource group, you have resources, right? So now let's see if I go back to subscription, okay? I go to access control, identity and access management. You will go to this identity and access management, okay? Go to the role assignments. Right now, nobody have got access. But if I go to the roles, you see owner, contributor, and reader. You can see the permissions and differences between each roles. Okay, and what they do, what does this means for. Then you do have other roles. They are also categorized. Microsoft categorized them into the built-in roles. But I don't call them as a built-in roles. I call them as a service specific roles. Okay, let me show you here. So the category you can see, this is related to machine learning. There are few services which are related to machine learning and permissions are there here. These are the roles. If I take the virtual machine, which I spoke in the example, right? Virtual machine contributor. this belongs to compute category. This is the role which I can give to anybody where they can manage the virtual machines. You see, let you manage the virtual machines. Okay. And virtual machine user login, virtual machine administrator login. Likewise, you have traffic manager contributor, website contributor, web workbook contributor, workbook reader. There are few roles and tag contributor and tag readers. So these are the service specific roles. Now I have not created any custom role. Okay, to create a custom role, you just need to click on add and click on a custom role. So provide the name, let's say restart role. Okay, and click next here. Add permissions. So as you see, virtual machines belongs to compute category. We need to select the category. There are different categories here. We need to look for the compute category. So what you can do is just search for the compute. So you see somewhere Microsoft.compute, Microsoft Compute, it is here. Then you look for the virtual machines restart operations. So if I scroll down, Microsoft.compute / virtual machines, Microsoft.compute / virtual machines and some other components. Likewise, if I go here, somewhere I will see virtual machine related operations. Okay, these are the virtual machine related operations here. Get virtual machines, create or update virtual machine, which is write access, delete virtual machine action, start virtual machine action, power off virtual machine, redeploy, reapply, and restart. Okay, I just select this restart virtual machine action. Click on add, then go to the next, and I'm assigning this, I'm creating this in a subscription level. Then next and create a role. Okay, this subscription is currently disabled, that's why I'm not able to create, but otherwise it will create a new role and it will show under the roles as well. If you scroll to the bottom, you will see that role available here. Okay, these are the roles we have, and if I wanted to assign anybody, click on add role assignment, select the permission that you wanted to assign to any user. I wanted to assign to user as a owner. And then here, this is where you have to click on select members and select the user accounts here. These user accounts might be created in the Azure AD and they will be shown here. Select one of the account and select here and click next and assign. That is how you will assign the permissions. Right now, I'm not able to assign because the subscription is disabled. Okay, this is the subscription and resource groups and resources. All right, if I go to the resource groups and again if I go to the resources as well, right, let me just click on the resources. I'm going to virtual machine as a resource. This is the virtual machine as a resource. Even in the resource group, you have access control. You can provide access to a resource in a resource group level and click on add and provide the permissions. And you can also go to a specific resource and provide permissions here as well. Everywhere you see an option called access control, IAM, and just add a role assignment. This is how you add permission. This is how the resource groups are created and resources are deployed. Let me show you Azure Active Directory here. Just look for Azure AD here or search for Azure AD. If you don't find any resource, just search here. You will be able to see that here. Azure Active Directory. This is where you will see the users. Okay, this is where you will see the users. These users will be available when you're providing permissions in a subscription level. Okay, so you look at this. This was my tenant, the company, domain name, and I got the directory as on Microsoft.com. Okay, so this is how you get the directory and its name. Okay, so I wanted to stop it here for today. And in the next session, I will talk to you a little bit more about these users and I will get a new subscription and I will also give you guys access to the new subscription so that you can also log in and you can also experiment the same thing what I'm doing in the next session. So we will create a organization. We'll try to create a new users. We'll try to synchronize them to the cloud. Then we'll try to give them access to the cloud. Okay. All right. So before we end the session for today, anyone have any questions, team?
No questions coming.
All right. If no questions, I think we can disconnect for today. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining the session today. I hope you learned something new today. Bye for now.
Okay, bye.
Yes. Thanks. Thanks, Kamal. Bye.
Yeah.